Hey there, it's E Squared. I'm Erin.
And I'm Emily, and we are here to keep things simple and fun.
Are you sick of spending hours and hours on editing and you still can't seem to get it right? Well, we're here to simplify that process and give you the one most important piece of that editing process.
Also, make sure to watch all the way until the end because we have something special just for you.
We promise to have you entering your next editing session, finding it to be a breeze and extremely quick.
For the best photography tips and tricks, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell for notifications for future videos.
The word to remember throughout this whole video is lighting, lighting, lighting. Proper lighting equals less editing time.
So we are here to explain why lighting is going to save you so much time with editing. When we first started, we shot in the weirdest spots, weirdest lighting, and we spent hours and hours editing. So we learned that placing your subject in the best light at the best time of the day is the key to speeding up your editing time and making your images look beautiful.
So we first want to start by saying all of our sessions are done. Well, I shouldn't say all of our sessions. Most of our sessions are done at sunset, 2 hours before sunset, or right around sunrise in the morning. Most of them, again, probably at sunset. Now, if we're for some reason shooting in the middle of the day because we had to for some reason, things change, but we're here to explain what happens even in those situations.
So sometimes there's situations where you have no control over the location you are shooting because you're at a wedding or the client has chosen. So the best thing to do is to educate your clients if you can at all costs and tell them that the most important thing for you is to have shade, shade, shade because you are going to get the best lighting. Now we don't mean like closed up shade under a tunnel. We mean more of that open shade that you can get. That is key to finding or to having beautiful photos.
All right, so if you look at this picture here, there's two different versions of it. One is just a little bit closer up. The lighting on the face and the time it took to edit was extremely simple. And the reason being is because we took this picture in what we call an open shaded area. Meaning that if Emily, the model here, were to look up, there would be nothing above her. But she's still in the shade. So she's not drowned by trees over the top of her, which is going to cause a whole different look, but she's completely in the shade. And you'll notice that her face looks pretty evenly lit, which is what we're going for.
Did you just call me a model?
Yeah.
Thank you. So shade is good, but you want certain shade. So you want even light in your background of your image, and you want even light on your model. So if you look at these pictures here, in the one on the right, it is even light in the background. You don't see any bit of sunlight reflecting onto the background. In the one on the left, you can see that big, huge break in sun, and that just doesn't look as nice. So if we were to scooch her up a little bit, or if there was something behind her that wasn't shaded, that would look a lot better. So avoid those breaks in sun at all costs because it's going to make it look not as high-end and nice.
And what you'll notice is when you look at that picture on the left there, it really, your eyes draw right attention to that bright spot in the photo rather than maybe on the face of your model that's standing there. And so it's really important to, when you can, avoid that break in the sun. And as you get out and practice and practice and practice, you'll start really noticing, oh, there's a break in sun. We need to move to a different area or whatever it might be. Because in the end, when you get it into the editing process, you'll have a harder time editing it. And you'll notice that the background is way overexposed and the client is maybe underexposed. And then it just gets a little bit trickier and takes time to perfect that image. Okay, so there are situations where you're shooting in the middle of the day and your client is, for some reason, maybe placed in direct sunlight. Well, keep in mind that when you're placed in direct sunlight, you're going to have some very unflattering shadows on your face and other areas that are not going to look natural and are not going to be flattering in the image in the end. It's also a little bit harder to edit when you're in direct sunlight. So if you look at these images of Emily here, on the right, she is in direct sunlight and so is on the left. However, on the right, she is facing the sun. So she has shadows all over her face. You can see her shadows behind her, but her shadows all over her face, and it's just overexposed and not flattering on her as well. Also, that makes the client squint because they're looking right into the sun. It's easier on you and on the camera, of course, because you're not shooting into the sun, but the image isn't going to look as nice, and either is your model. Whereas on the left, Emily is facing the opposite direction. The sun is behind her. She has some backlighting on her hair there, just a little bit, but you'll notice that her shadow is in front of her. So if you have to shoot in direct sunlight, you want to look for, where is the shadow? The shadow needs to be in front of your client. If it's a cloudy day, it's still important to try and figure out where that shadow is. And there will always be a very faint shadow, so you will be able to find it on the ground or somewhere where you can figure out where the direction of the sun is actually coming from. So the shadow needs to be in front of the client for a more flattering picture if you're shooting in direct sunlight.
And one bonus thing, when you are forced to be shooting into the sunlight at the client, a lens hood is really important to use so you don't get that flare of light. Or you can cover it with the lens with here. I have a camera here. You can cover it with your hand here, or if you have a reflector along, you can have somebody cover you and your camera with the reflector, and that will really help if you're having to shoot directly into the sun.
Remember, practice is going to help.
So we talked about even light from head to toe and even light in the background and on your subject. So one key important thing too is to steer clear of spotty areas, because again, that's going to distract you and your focus will not be on the client. So if you look at this picture here, you can see that there's spotty areas around, and it's just not very flattering because you don't even know where to look in the picture because there's so much going on with the splotches, and then the shadows on the faces aren't very nice. So steer clear of those spotty areas.
And when you think about spotty areas and you're thinking about your client or a group of clients standing in an area that is spotty, you're always going to have a spot of sunlight somewhere on the client that is very distracting and not flattering in the overall image. And again, in the editing process is going to take more time to figure out and just take more time in general to edit. All right, so another thing that we like to do, and this has probably dramatically decreased our editing time, is that when we can, and not always does it work, but when we can, we use a reflector. And we use a reflector for a lot of different reasons, but most of the time it's just to bounce the light onto the client's face to even that light, especially if they're in shade or it's an overcast day. It just really adds a little bit of bounce to their, or a little bit of sharpness and brightness to their face. We like to use a gold and silver combo reflector. That's kind of our go-to. And you can find a ton of different reflectors, but we also use a reflector for a bunch of different reasons. Like Emily had said before, we use it for coverage. Like one of us will hold it over, or if you have somebody along with you, they'll hold it over to block that sun, or even hold it on the client just to block the sunlight if you found a really cool spot, but there's maybe one splotch of sun because you're in a spotty area. So there's a lot of different uses for your reflector, but we primarily use it to bounce that light to even it out and brighten it up a little bit. Okay, so if you notice in this picture of Emily here, you notice that on the left-hand side, there is no reflector being used, versus the right-hand side, we have used our go-to gold and silver combo reflector, and you can see the subtle difference in her face and how much better it really does look.
All right, so if you could comment down below for us and let us know, have you used a reflector before? Yes or no? So reflectors are good, but also natural reflectors are good. So things like shooting in somewhere where there's concrete below you or a light colored gravel. So if you look at this picture here, there's a nice light colored gravel that acted as a natural reflector for us to reflect light on to this little guy here, which was really helpful. So always keep an eye out for those, because those can really help. Even like concrete walls, light colored walls, those really bring a nice natural reflector onto their face. But don't stress over it. That's not like, you don't have to shoot with natural reflectors around. It just is a bonus whenever you're shooting.
Yep, it's an extra bonus. So remember that that's definitely going to help save time in the editing process if you can find those areas, or if you can use a reflector of your own. So any reflector is going to help save time in the editing process. Okay, so one thing that we found that we really need to do throughout an entire session sometimes is really be educating the clients about the light. You'll have some clients that will just go with the flow, and then you'll have some clients that spot fun, different, cool, new places that they really want to try, and you really have to educate your clients about the light and why you choose not to do it in direct sunlight, and why maybe you're picking this area over here where it's shaded, because they're in the end really going to love their photo a lot more if it's in the ideal lighting situation. And again, remembering that time it's going to take to edit the photo is going to be worth finding that spot. So just educating your clients about those things as you go through the session.
All right, so now hopefully those give you some really good ideas to save you some time in the editing process using those lighting techniques. But the main thing we can't emphasize enough is that you need to go out and just practice, practice, practice. Find those spots, find those locations and that good lighting, and just practice, and then bring it into the editing process. Now, we know that maybe you can find that good light, but you're still like, how am I going to edit these pictures to look good? That's why we have created something just for you.
So we have created a little freebie, a download in the description below, that is going to give you all of the steps we take to edit our photos. So if you can nail the lighting and follow our editing tips in Lightroom, you will be set to go. We've also added a little bonus at the end of our freebie that is just shortcuts that we love to use. It saves us even extra time in the editing process.
Make sure to follow along with us on Instagram at esquared Photography School. It's going to give you a lot of tips throughout the week and some good advice for your photography business.
All right, so after watching this video, what's your one takeaway that you're going to really focus on? Post it in the comments below. Make sure and don't forget to download our freebie. And if you liked this video, make sure you subscribe, share with a friend, so we know to make more videos just like this one.
So make sure to stick around and check out our next video, which is all about using Lightroom and editing those photos in Lightroom. And we will see you next time.